Revealed, the incredible story of a mother's hidden sacrifice to save her country home for love, in the heart of Harmony Hills, where whispers of the past hung like fragile cobwebs. 38-year-old Ruth fought against the storm of despair. Each morning, as the sun cast its golden rays over the crumbling facade of her family farmhouse, she felt the weight of her late husband's legacy. His laughter echoed within these walls, a reminder of the love and stability that had once thrived. But now, the home they built together faced the chill of foreclosure, and bills piled up like autumn leaves waiting for a strong wind to sweep them away. As winter crept closer, Ruth's resolve deepened. She could feel the judgmental glares of the townsfolk, their whispers ghosting her like shadows. They doubted her ability to keep the farm alive, to preserve what was supposed to be her children's heritage. Each look weighed on her heart like stones, questioning her grit and determination. Her children, Sam and Lily, watched their mother's weary eyes, a mix of admiration and worry as her hands grew calloused while digging into the soil that held memories of love and laughter. It was a typical chilly evening when Ruth decided to relaunch the family farm. She was determined to honor her husband's memory, planting seeds with both grief and hope. "Look," she said, her voice shaky but proud, "this will be our summer." But no matter how she turned rich earth into open hands, the unease grew palpable. Sam missed his friends, Lily yearned for a stable life. Their innocent whispers turned into hidden questions, voicing their doubts about the sacrifices Ruth was making. One stormy night, the thunder roared as if echoing their unresolved pain. Already strained, a fight erupted. Ruth's heart raced, a tightness in her chest as accusations rang out. "You don't care about us. Only the farm." Sam shouted, his voice cracking with frustration. Tears blurred Ruth's vision, her heart ached for what they had all lost and what she fought to keep. That night, a cruel wind whipped through the cracks of their home, but inside, the tempest was worse. The walls shook, and for a moment, it felt like everything she'd sacrificed could collapse in an instant. As the night wore on, Ruth sat alone, wrapped in the haunting silence of her regrets. Beneath the bluster, something shifted. Could love, in all its forms, transcend mere survival? Could home be defined through shared burdens and unspoken wishes? "Mom," Lily's soft voice called from the shadows, "we just want you to be happy too. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With little resolve, Ruth gathered herself as dawn broke, droplets shimmering like diamonds on the frosty grass. The townsfolk began to notice the stoic determination in her eyes, the flicker of resilience in her spirit. Yet, every step forward demanded a new sacrifice, a new challenge. Standing at the crossroads of resilience and vulnerability, Ruth knew she had to find a way to balance her dream with her children's needs. And with the cherished memories of laughter and life illuminating the path, the battle to protect her family and heal the rift that threatened to pull them apart had only just begun. Would Ruth's fierce love bring them closer or push them farther apart? The future hung in the balance, waiting to be written. As the days turned into weeks, the frigid air of winter began to soften, hinting at the hope of spring. Ruth felt the heaviness in her chest lift, even if just slightly. It was as if the thawing ground mirrored the transformations happening internally. She had made a commitment not just to her husband's legacy but to her children. With every seed she planted, she wanted to nurture more than just crops, she wanted to cultivate healing within her family. One afternoon, while clearing an old shed behind the barn, Ruth stumbled upon her husband's gardening journal. The pages, filled with neat script and drawings, were a treasure trove of memories and dreams. As she flipped through the pages, images flooded her mind of laughter and the simple joy of nurturing life. She traced her fingers over the ink and felt a surge of warmth, a reminder of why they had started this journey in the first place. That evening, Ruth gathered Sam and Lily around the kitchen table, the air thick with the aroma of freshly baked bread. "I found this today," she began, holding up the journal. "It's your dad's. He believed in growing things, and I think this might help us find our way back to each other." Eyes wide with curiosity, Lily leaned in closely. "Can we read some of it, Mom?" With nods of agreement, Ruth opened the journal, and soon their home filled with the sound of her voice reading stories of their father's gardening trials and errors. Laughter broke through the tension as they shared the silly drawings of vegetables with faces. For the first time in a while, it felt like they were together, united not just by circumstance but by shared memories. "Can we plant a garden together?" Sam asked, a spark of excitement illuminating his face. Ruth smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Absolutely. It'll be our garden, together. Let us make it a family project." They spent the next few weeks preparing the earth, their hands digging into the soil with renewed purpose. The townsfolk began to notice the changes. The farm was alive again, and so was Ruth's spirit. Those whispers of doubt slowly turned into words of encouragement from neighbors who had once been skeptical. One bright Saturday, the trio attended the town's spring festival, buzzing with laughter and camaraderie. Ruth felt lighter among the community, who smiled warmly at her efforts. A kind older woman approached her and clasped her hands warmly. "I always knew you had it in you, dear. Your husband would be proud." Ruth felt tears prick at her eyes knowing that she was finally stepping out of the shadow of despair and into the light of resilience. As the weeks went by, however, a different kind of storm began brewing, one that stemmed from the neighbors' growing interest in the farm. A notable developer had taken an eye to the land, eager to push for a lucrative offer, offering more than Ruth could have imagined, more than she would ever see in a year of farming. They wanted to acquire the property, promising her financial freedom, a tempting prospect that could take the weight off her shoulders. Caught between the allure of security and the commitment to her family's legacy, Ruth found herself awake at night, the crickets singing a familiar, haunting tune. Would selling the land betray her husband's memory? Or could it be the solution to all their struggles? The next day, as she stood at the edge of the field, watching Sam and Lily play, the wind whipped through the branches, a bittersweet reminder of the choices ahead. Would her sacrifices truly be in vain? A decision loomed on the horizon, one that could change everything. And as Ruth turned to look at her children's faces, one question circled in her mind: are the ties of love strong enough to hold them together, or would the impending change shatter their fragile bonds forever? Ruth stood alone at the edge of the field as the sun dipped low on the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. Her heart raced, each beat echoing the undeniable weight of her dilemma. The offer loomed in her mind, the figures dancing like elusive spirits, tantalizing yet unnerving. Would it be the freedom she craved, or a prison of regret for abandoning what her family had built together? A soft tug on her shirt broke her reverie. It was Lily, her little girl's face aglow with curiosity. "Mom, what's wrong? You've been looking sad again." Ruth knelt down to meet her gaze, searching for the right words. How could she explain the complexities of a grown-up world to her child, where choices didn't always yield easy answers? "It's just, sometimes grown-ups have hard choices to make," Ruth finally said, her voice gentle but heavy with the burden of her thoughts. "But I promise, whatever happens, we'll get through it together." Lily nodded slowly, clearly sensing her mother's struggle. "We planted seeds to grow together, right? We can keep growing, no matter what." Ruth felt a rush of warmth, enveloped like a comforting embrace from the earth they tenderly worked. "You're right, honey. We can keep growing together." She planted a kiss on her forehead, trying to find strength in those simple words. Later that evening, as the stars began to emerge, Ruth and the kids cuddled on the porch with blankets wrapped around them. They laughed and shared stories about their garden, dreams of vibrant vegetables and blossoms that would soon come alive. With each shared smile, the shadows of doubt seemed to recede. For tonight, they were basking in the glow of family, love, and togetherness. The next morning, Ruth woke early, her head filled with fresh resolve. She brewed coffee, savoring the scent that wrapped around her kitchen, grounding her as she contemplated the offer once more. Maybe this was the moment to remind herself of her husband's dreams, their vision woven into the fabric of the farm. With a heavy heart, she drove into town, the wind tousling her hair as she recalled whispered conversations with her husband about agriculture and community. This land was not just a business, it was home. It was where Sam had taken his first steps, where Lily had chased butterflies through wildflowers. Second-guessing herself, she decided to visit the town hall. As she walked through the quaint wooden doors, she spotted old friends, familiar faces lined with years of shared memories. They greeted her warmly, their kindness wrapping around her like a blanket of love. Sitting in front of a large wooden table, the town mayor welcomed her. "Ruth. So good to see you, dear. How is the farm coming along?" With every inquiry, Ruth felt courage bloom within her. "It's going well," she replied, her voice steadier than in her heart. "But I've got some decisions to make about the future." As she spoke, she talked about her fears of selling, the pressure of financial security battling against her heartfelt commitment to the land and her children. The mayor listened intently, nodding thoughtfully. "You know," he began, "there are people here who want to help you, who believe in your vision. This community cares, Ruth. You don't have to face this alone." His words lit a small fire within her. With a newfound resolve forming, she realized that perhaps the farm didn't need to come to an end. Maybe they could fight for it together. Ruth returned home just as the sun was setting, a profound sense of hope replacing her earlier uncertainty. As the colors of twilight filled the sky, she gathered Sam and Lily once more, ready to share her decision. "We're not giving up on our home," she said with conviction, determination rallying in her chest, but just as she finished speaking, a sudden knock at the door interrupted. It was the developer, standing there with a smile that sent shivers down her spine. "I hope you've had time to think about my offer," he began. Ruth held her breath, sensing that this moment was about to change everything. Would they continue to stand together, or would fear once again threaten to tear them apart? Ruth's heart pounded as she stared into the developer's confident grin. "I've thought about it," she said, forcing the words out, feeling the weight of the decision bearing down on her. "And I'm not interested." The smile faltered briefly before hardening again. "You're making a mistake, Ruth. This is a generous offer. One that can set you for life." His voice dripped with charm, but she caught the edge of impatience beneath it. "I don't want your money. This isn't just a piece of land to me," she replied, her voice stronger now, fueled by the hope she had just rekindled. "Let us be honest. You're struggling. I know you are. Look around, the farm has been under strain for years. What is sentimental value compared to financial stability?" He leaned forward, his expression shifting to one of concern, as if he was acting in her best interest. "Those memories are what give this land its value," Ruth countered, her chest tightening. "My husband poured his life into this place. Our children play here. It's not just soil and crops, it's our heritage." Lily emerged from behind Ruth, gripping her mother's leg. "Mommy, are we gonna keep the farm?" The innocent question hung in the air like a fragile thread. Ruth knelt down and brushed Lily's hair from her face. "Yes, sweetheart. We're going to keep it." A fierce determination ignited within her. Suddenly the room felt smaller, the walls closing in with the gravity of the situation. The developer shifted his focus to the little girl. "Don't you want to live in a more comfortable place? With toys and nice clothes?" His voice lowered, smooth and tempting, the kind that could lure a child. Lily shook her head. "I want our home." There was a slight tremor in her voice, but the clarity of her resolve shone bright. It was a moment of unfiltered truth, resonating with the power of unwavering love. The developer sensed the shift in the atmosphere, his charming demeanor faltering slightly. "You'll be putting yourselves at risk, Ruth. I can help you. All you have to do is sign on the dotted line." Ruth straightened, locking eyes with the man who threatened her future. "I'll take my chances." With his smile vanishing, he took a step back, sizing her up, as if assessing whether she would crumble under pressure. You're a stubborn one, I'll give you that, he said curtly. But don't say I didn't warn you. This community will not sustain you forever. As he turned to leave, Ruth felt the weight of her choices intensify. She hurriedly closed the door behind him, and a rush of relief flooded through her, mixed with apprehension. Sam would be home soon, and she needed to explain why they were sticking with the farm, why she had made that choice. The evening air grew thick with unspoken fears as Ruth gathered the children once again, a shield of love surrounding them. She explained with sincerity how this land was a part of their family and their story. They were a patchwork of dreams stitched together by their struggles and triumphs. Later that night, as they lay in bed, Ruth held onto the warmth of Lily's small hand. She whispered soft reassurances, reminding herself that they were stronger than anyone knew. But beneath the surface, doubt began to gnaw at her. Had she made the right decision? Was holding on to the farm worth the looming uncertainty ahead? Just then, an unexpected sound broke through the stillness, a soft knock at the window. Ruth's heart raced. She felt the urgency of the moment, a sense that things were about to change again. Who could it be? With bated breath, Ruth moved closer to the window, tension creeping up her spine. And when she peered through the curtain, her heart fell. A figure stood in the shadows, barely illuminated by the streetlight. Was it someone from the town, or could it be the developer returning? Ruth held her breath, knowing that this encounter would reveal more than she ever anticipated. What did they want now? Ruth squinted, trying to make out the figure shrouded in darkness. The soft knock echoed in the quiet of the night, sending a shiver down her spine. Her heart raced as she imagined the worst. Was it the developer back with more threats? Or perhaps someone angry about her refusal to sell? Gathering her courage, she eased the curtain aside. The glow from the streetlight revealed a familiar face, yet one she hadn't seen in years. It was Jacob, a friend from her past, the kind of friend who used to disappear under the pressures of adult life. He had left the town chasing dreams while she had stayed, rooted in family. As she opened the window just a crack, the cool night air rushed in, mingling with the warmth of her fear. Jacob? What are you doing here? I heard about what happened, Ruth. His voice was low, but the concern was palpable. I had to come see for myself. May I come in? She hesitated, thoughts racing. Could he help? Would he pretend not to see the chaos lurking behind her brave facade? But the look in his eyes had a sincerity that allowed her to step aside, opening the window wider. Once inside, he scanned the cozy living room, the remnants of family life before settling on Ruth. It's been a long time, hasn't it? You look tired. Yeah, well, you still have that way of showing up right when things are complicated, she replied, a hint of a smile on her lips. Even amid her worn-down spirit, Jacob perched on the edge of the couch. He looked different, more mature, a ruggedness around the edges that indicated the passing years had not been gentle. Guess we're both a bit worn, aren't we? Ruth felt a flicker of connection in the air, but she quickly brushed it aside. It's been a challenge ever since my husband passed. Now a developer wants to buy the farm. I can see why you'd decline, he said, his brow furrowed. This place means something to you. A lot, she whispered, hugging herself tightly, as if to ward off the chill of uncertainty that had settled in her bones. But I worry, how will I make it on my own? The bills are piling up, the land is barely sustaining us. I'm afraid I'm fighting a losing battle. Jacob sat back, listening intently, nodding as she spoke. I understand. But you have to remember you're not alone in this. I came back to help my family, and I'd like to help you too. Let's find a way to make this work. A flicker of hope ignited in Ruth's heart. You do that? But I wouldn't want to burden you. You have your own life. I came back for family. I understand what it means to fight for what you love. Let us brainstorm, figure out what can be done. Tears stung Ruth's eyes as the walls she had built around her heart began to crumble. She had fought this battle alone for too long, denying herself the help and support she needed. Just then, the soft patter of tiny feet interrupted them. Lily appeared in the doorway, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Mommy? Is everything okay?" Ruth knelt down to her daughter, wrapping her arms around her. "Everything's just fine, sweetheart. We're talking about how to keep our home safe." Lily looked up at Jacob, her eyes wide with curiosity. "Will you help us save the farm?" The earnestness of Lily's question hung in the air. Jacob chuckled softly, his smile genuine. "That's the plan, little lady." Ruth shared a brief moment of warmth with Jacob, something she hadn't felt in years. But just as quickly, the weight of reality reminded her of the developer's threat and how the clock was ticking. Then a sudden thought struck her. What if the developer is right? What if the community really can't support us anymore? As dread settled back in, Jacob's eyes locked onto hers, and in that instant, she sensed the strength of his belief. "We'll face it, together. I promise you that." With a nod, Ruth took a deep breath. But just as hope began to swell, fear washed over her again. Would working with Jacob really help them survive, or was it merely delaying the inevitable? A sharp knock at the door broke through her thoughts, and Ruth felt her heart skip a beat. Had the developer returned? The tension in the room thickened, dark with questions that needed answers. What awaited them on the other side of that door? Ruth's heart raced as she exchanged worried glances with Jacob. The knock echoed again, urgent and demanding. With trembling hands, she moved toward the door, each step feeling heavier than the last. She could sense Jacob's presence behind her, steady and reassuring. "Just be careful," he whispered, tension lacing his voice. She inhaled deeply and reached for the knob. The wood felt cool against her palm, grounding her in the moment. As she opened the door, the night air flooded in, chilling her skin. There, illuminated in the glow from the porch light, stood Doug, the very developer who had threatened her so many times before. His face was stony, but a smirk tugged at the corners of his lips as he took in the scene. "Ruth," he began, voice smooth and smug. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything." The tightness in her chest betrayed her confidence as she stepped forward, shielding Lily behind her. "What do you want, Doug?" "I wanted to check in on my favorite landowner." He ran a hand through his slicked back hair. "I hear you're still refusing my offer. A decision like that can have consequences." Ruth glanced at Jacob, who had moved closer, standing a protective ally beside her. She took a deep breath. "I'm not interested in selling, Doug. This farm is my family's legacy." A flash of irritation crossed Doug's brow. "Your legacy? Or a burden? Look around. This isn't the same place it used to be. Times are changing. Adapting is the key." Ruth's pulse quickened. Doug's words felt like cold water on the warmth of her fragile hope. Maybe some things shouldn't change. Not everything is about money. He chuckled, a sound devoid of humor. "Sure, stand firm. But if you let your pride dictate your choices, you might find yourself regretting it later. I'll be back. Just remember, you're running out of time." With that, he stepped off the porch, leaving a chilling silence in his wake. Ruth felt the weight of those words sink deep into her soul. "He's right about one thing, time is running out," she murmured, backing away from the door, anxiety bubbling in her chest. Jacob leaned closer, concern etched across his face. "Let us not focus on what he said. We need to think about how to keep this place, not let him scare us into selling." Lily tugged at Ruth's hand, her innocent voice breaking through the heaviness. "Mommy, are we going to lose the farm? I don't want to leave our home." Ruth knelt down, her heart aching at the watery determination in her daughter's eyes. "We're going to fight for it, sweetheart. We just need to come together as a family." Jacob moved to her side, placing a supportive hand on her shoulder. "We'll figure it out. Maybe even reach out to the community. They might not understand what's at stake until they see someone fighting for it." A flicker of inspiration sparked within her. "You're right. If people knew what was happening, they might rally together." This is more than just a piece of land, it's a part of who we are. As the words hung in the air, hope began to blossom anew. Ruth felt the strength of their resolve filling the space between them. Together, they could take a stand against time, fear, and Doug's threats. "Let us start planning a community meeting," Ruth said, confidence steadily rising. "We can share our story, show everyone how much this place means to us." Just then, her phone buzzed on the coffee table. Ruth rushed over, her heart pounding with urgency. A message had come through from an old neighbor. "I heard the news. We believe in you, Ruth. Let us unite." Tears pricked at her eyes, every word felt like a lifeline thrown out in dark waters. But as she read the message aloud, a sense of foreboding washed over her. What if we can't save it, even if we unite? She pondered out loud, fear creeping back into her thoughts. Jacob's gaze met hers, fierce determination in his eyes. "We'll find a way, Ruth. But we can't show fear. Together, we'll fight. We can't let fear win." As Ruth nodded, a resolute fire ignited in her heart. But little did they know, Doug wasn't the only force working against them. Outside, a storm began brewing on the horizon, dark clouds rolling in like the uncertainty of the future that lay ahead. Would they be able to fight against not just Doug but the unforeseen challenges that loomed in the shadows? With more questions than answers, Ruth felt her resolve solidify as Lily nestled close, the warmth of her daughter a reminder of what was worth fighting for. Could they truly protect their home and community, or was change inevitable? The answer would come soon enough. Ruth sat at the kitchen table, her fingers tracing the edge of the worn wood. The fading light cast a warm glow in the room, but the encroaching storm loomed just outside the window. A thunderclap rattled the dishes, sending shivers down her spine. She could almost hear Doug's taunting voice in the back of her mind, reminding her of the ticking clock. "Tomorrow, we need to start making calls," Jacob said as he poured a cup of coffee. "We should contact everyone we know, friends, family, even folks who used to live around here. Let them know what's happening." "Right," Ruth replied, nodding, though doubt nagged at her. "What if they don't care? This place is just a house to them now." Jacob set the cup down, his eyes bright with fierce determination. "You have to believe they will care. This is their history, too. We'll share what this land means. When they see your passion, it'll resonate." Just then, Lily bounded into the room, her little feet pitter-pattering across the hardwood floor. "What are we talking about?" she asked, peering up at her parents with wide, curious eyes. "About the farm, sweetheart. We're figuring out how to make sure we keep it," Ruth replied, forcing a smile that felt too tight. "But why does it matter so much?" Lily asked, her head tilting. "Can't we just find a new home?" Ruth's heart twisted. "This farm is home, baby. It's where we've made memories, where your grandparents worked hard to build a life. We can't just let it go because someone thinks it's time to sell." Lily blinked, her brow furrowing in thought. "So we're going to fight?" "Yes, we are," Ruth affirmed, kneeling down to be eye level with her daughter. "And fighting means working together." "Okay. I want to help," Lily exclaimed, a spark igniting in her eyes. Jacob chuckled softly. "You already are, kiddo. Just being here gives us the strength we need." A faint smile broke through Ruth's worries as she pulled her daughter into a hug. It felt good to have that support, even when darkness loomed close. As the storm rumbled outside, a sudden thought pierced Ruth's mind: what other stories lay hidden in the community? She remembered the town meetings at the old schoolhouse, where tales of courage and resilience echoed against peeling paint and creaky floors. None of them had been rich in the monetary sense, but they were wealthy in spirit, camaraderie, and love for their land. "We can share the stories," Ruth said, straightening up with renewed vigor. "Every family has a connection to this place. If we can get everyone to speak up, it'll be harder for Doug to convince us it's worth selling." Jacob raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Share what stories?" Every wedding, every birth, every harvest. The struggles and the triumphs that have shaped this land. It's time everyone remembered why it matters, she replied, feeling that sense of unity solidifying between them. Lily clapped her hands. Can I tell them about the tree swing? And my flowers? Absolutely. Ruth laughed, her worries melting for a moment. But then the thought swept back in. Doug would not take their fight lightly. Pressure mounted on every front, from nature's wrath to the weight of expectations. That night, the storm broke open, rain pounded on the roof, and lightning illuminated their little home. Ruth held Lily close, whispering promises of hope. But the words felt fragile against the storm outside. Tomorrow is a big day, isn't it? Jacob murmured, pulling them both in, creating a circle of warmth as thunder boomed around them. Ruth's lips quirked into a smile. Yes. We'll reach out. We will be ready. Yet, as she settled beneath the sheets, she could not shake the feeling of impending doom lurking just around the corner. There lay a glimmer of hope amidst the shadows, but the coming storm wasn't just about the weather. Would they wake to find the community rallied around them, or could the darkness of fear snuff it all out? As Ruth closed her eyes that night, she prayed for strength, knowing that tomorrow might bring them all face to face with their futures. But was she truly prepared for the fight ahead? As dawn broke, soft rays trickled through the kitchen window, illuminating the remnants of last night's storm. Ruth inhaled deeply, the air still carrying a hint of dampness mixed with the comforting aroma of coffee brewing. She slipped into her worn slippers as she made her way to the kitchen, her thoughts still wrapped around the day ahead. Jacob was already at the table, a notebook spread open in front of him, pen in hand. Morning, he greeted her, a faint smile on his lips. Did you sleep at all? Ruth asked, noticing the dark circles under his eyes. Not much. Too many ideas racing around, he replied, scratching his head. I started jotting down our strategy for today. Amid the mundane trappings of a daily routine, Ruth felt the weight of their mission pressing down. Okay, what do you have so far? Jacob glanced at the notebook. First, we reach out to the old-timers, the ones who've been here through thick and thin. Then, we'll contact families with ties to the land. And of course he hesitated, making eye contact with Ruth, we need to address the town council. Ruth's stomach knotted at the thought of the council meeting. She could already picture Doug's smug expression, his confidence exuding from the way he stood, tall and assured, like a vulture waiting for its meal. I'm not sure they'll listen to us, she said softly. Not with his backers behind him. Then we make them listen. We have to show them the heart of this community, Jacob insisted. It's not just about the farm. It's about legacy. Lily padded into the room, her hair tousled and eyes bright. What's for breakfast? Ruth's heart lightened at the sight of her daughter. Pancakes, your favorite. But first, we need to talk about our plans today, okay? Okay. Lily chirped, climbing onto a chair. While we reach out to people, I need you to help me make some signs, Ruth continued. Not just any signs, but ones that tell our stories. Can you do that? Lily nodded vigorously. Suddenly, the weight of the day felt a bit lighter, buoyed by her daughter's enthusiasm. After breakfast, Ruth found herself on the front porch, the sun now shining as she looked out at the fields. Each blade of grass seemed to tell a story of laughter, of toil, of dreams. She took a moment to center herself, thinking of what lay ahead. The first few calls went well, old friends reminiscing about the good days, eager to lend their support. As conversations flowed, Ruth felt encouragement building inside her, filling her with hope. She shared their story, the memories of family gatherings and community events that defined the farm. And with every heartfelt conversation, she could feel her confidence growing. As she hung up from the last call, a sense of fatigue settled in. She sat back on the porch swinging gently, when she heard little footsteps behind her. Mom, look! Lily exclaimed, holding up a handful of markers and bright paper. I made these for our signs. Ruth turned to see Lily bursting with excitement, the embodiment of pure joy. Wow! These are amazing, sweetie. You're going to help inspire people today. Encouraged by her daughter's spirit, Ruth felt ready to enter the meeting with renewed vigor. She rallied Jacob and Lily, and together they crafted a plan for their presentation. As the afternoon sun stretched on, Ruth felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation fluttering in her stomach. As they piled into the truck, Jacob's reassuring squeeze on her hand calmed her fears. However, briefly, when they arrived at the town hall, the atmosphere was charged, the air thick with tension and uncertainty. Ruth's heart pounded in her chest as they stepped inside. Voices rose around them, and she caught a glimpse of Doug, his presence looming and dominant. "Are you ready?" Jacob asked. Ruth gulped, her pulse racing. "I think so," she breathed, trying to remain steady, but just as they were about to push through the door, Ruth's intuition screamed a warning. She paused, taking a deep breath. "Wait. What if they don't want to hear us? What if we're wasting our time?" Jacob's eyes softened. "Then we fight harder. We show them our truth, Ruth. We don't back down. Not now." And just when she thought she had a hold on her nerves, the sharp crack of the door opening swung her resolve like wind through a tree, and they stepped into a room of waiting faces. Ruth locked eyes with Doug, his smile wide, and the unease slithered back into her heart. What if today was the day the truth came crashing down on everything she loved? She realized this wasn't just about a piece of land, it was about fighting for the voice of a community. As she stood on the threshold, the first words on the tip of her tongue felt heavy, but she knew she had to speak. Today would define their path forward. In that moment, she understood. This was about more than the farm. It was about all of them. With a breath deep enough to steady her shaking hands, she stepped forward, knowing that every word could make or break everything she cherished and setting the stage for a revelation that might turn the tide of their future. Ruth felt the weight of the room settle on her like a thick fog. Faces turned towards her, some curious, others guarded, but all waiting. Doug's smile seemed almost predatory, urging her to falter. She swallowed hard, grasping for courage as she held Jacob's hand tightly. "Thank you for coming," she started, her voice trembling but gaining strength. "We're here today to talk about something that matters to all of us. Our home, our history, and what we're willing to fight for." The words rushed out, and she briefly glanced at Lily, who stood with her markers and signs, a symbol of innocence and hope. Ruth could see at the flicker of recognition among some of the townsfolk, the memories they shared of family dinners and community barbecues sprawled out under the stars. She spoke about the farm's legacy, how it had shaped their community, how love breathed life into every corner of the land. She reminded them of the laughter shared under the old oak tree, of friendships formed in the barn, and the way the fields shimmered with possibility, but Doug wasn't going to let her have the stage easily. He interrupted with a chuckle. "That's a lovely story, Ruth, but do you really think sentimentality will save this dying piece of land? We need progress. We need development." Ruth's heart sank momentarily, but Jacob stepped forward, a shield for her trembling spirit. "This isn't just a piece of land to us. It's home. It's a part of each of us. We're not asking to stop progress, we're asking for respect for what has always been here," he declared, his voice unwavering. The room shifted slightly, murmurs of agreement rising like a wave. Ruth felt energized by Jacob's words, an undercurrent of strength coursing through her veins. But Doug laughed again, a sharp, dismissive sound that cut through the air. "Respect? What a quaint idea. We're dealing with big investors, Ruth. You really think your charm will keep this place afloat? You're living in a fairy tale." Ruth turned back to him, anger and hurt intertwining. "Living a fairy tale? Doug, we've built our lives here. Every grain of soil has a memory, every tree a story. You don't get to define our truth." Her voice rose with a fervor she didn't know she possessed. Doug sneered, eyes narrow with disdain. "Truth? This is about money and progress. Take it or leave it. He gestured dismissively at the crowd. They looked torn, uncertain, caught between nostalgia and vision. Ruth felt a crushing despair seep in, thoughts racing through her mind. What if Doug was right? What if they were outmatched? But then she glanced at Lily, who held one of the colorful signs her daughter had made. It read, "Home is where our hearts are." Something sparked deep in her, lighting up the darkness of doubt. "You know," she said, her tone steadying, "this isn't just about land or profit. It's about love, about our children's future. Can we really sacrifice that for a quick dollar?" The room stirred again, whispers traveling through the crowd. Hope flickered in her gut as she pressed on. "You have a choice to make today. Do we preserve the spirit of this community, or do we let it wither under the weight of greed?" Her gaze swept across the familiar faces, each one a story she knew. A fire ignited within her as she waited for their response. Then she saw its small nod starting to ripple through the crowd. They remembered what mattered, and she clenched her fists in determination. Just then, Doug raised his hand, a knowing smirk on his face. "You think it's that simple, don't you? But let us talk numbers." Ruth's heart dropped. She realized they were running out of time. The crowd was starting to divide right before her eyes, swept along by Doug's confidence and calculating charm. She took a deep breath, preparing to defend everything she loved. Before Ruth could put her thoughts into words, Jacob leaned closer, whispering heavily, "We have one last chance. We need to pull at their heartstrings. What do you want them to remember?" Only then did Ruth realize, they all remembered love. They had to connect it to the land. With fiery resolve, she prepared to bridge the gaps Doug was trying to create. As Ruth stepped forward, something in her gut twisted again. She would shout her truth if it meant keeping the spirit of her home alive. In that moment of clarity, she understood that the upcoming words would decide not just their fate, but the very soul of their community. Would love withstand the tide of greed? But she couldn't shake the weight of Doug's looming threat. If she failed today, everything would change forever. Ruth took a deep breath, ready to push back against the tide, as the very fabric of her life woven with love and history hung in the balance. Would she be able to turn the tide from despair to hope? Ruth's heart thudded heavily in her chest as she took one more step forward, her determination unfurling like the first bloom of spring. The tension in the room thickened, but she held on to the flickering hope that those gathered still remembered what truly mattered. "Listen," she began, voice steady but laced with raw emotion. "This land is not just soil and timber. It's where my children learn to walk, where each one of us has memories etched into the very air." She glanced at Lily, who clutched her little sign, wide-eyed, and then at Jacob, whose presence anchored her. "It's a part of our family's legacy, intertwined with every hope and every dream we've shared. Leaving this place behind, it would rip our hearts out." Threads of doubt woven through the crowd began to unravel. Faces that had seemed indifferent now softened, inflected with curiosity and compassion. Ruth seized the moment, feeling their gaze shift from doubt to understanding. "Do you remember the spring festivals?" she pressed. "Do you recall the laughter echoing through the fields? This farm isn't just mine, it's intertwined with every one of us. It's a symbol of resilience, a testament to life and community. It's our history." A ripple of recognition washed over the gathering. She could see the wheels turning in their minds, as if each memory painted a picture of the life they once knew. Doug scoffed, but his confidence wavered slightly. Ruth's heart raced with a new surge of resolve. "What we have here is worth protecting. We have a chance to create something better, a space where our children can grow, where they can learn the value of hard work and the love of community," she continued, urgency driving each word. "Our story still holds power. If we stand together, we can keep it alive." A murmur of agreement began to circulate not just from Jacob but from others in the crowd. Ruth seized the opportunity, her voice stronger now, filled with lifeblood. "Let us create a community garden, or host seasonal markets. We can teach our kids about our traditions, bringing us all closer. But we must do this together. We won't let Doug take this from us. Her declaration hung in the air, each heartbeat echoed a promise of unity. Forcing a smile through her tears, Ruth looked at her children Sam and Lily, knowing they were fighting for their future. Will you stand with us? At that moment, an elderly man rose from the back, his lined face filled with wisdom. I remember when my children played there under that oak tree. They danced and sang every spring. We built this town together, it's in our hearts. A chorus of voices rose as more and more people voiced their shared memories. The tide was turning, people began nodding, murmurs of agreement igniting around the room. Doug's face tightened, unyielding. But the storm of emotions swirling through the room was palpable. Ruth felt the cracks form in Doug's fortress as the community's resolve surged stronger than the shadows of doubt. Let us make a plan. Someone shouted. Let us protect our home. Ruth's heart soared. Here they were united. She felt the warmth of connection, a vital bond woven through the fabric of their lives. Then, driven by a collective spirit, the townsfolk began shouting ideas, brainstorming projects and strategies. The hum of voices wrapped around her like a blanket of hope. Each suggestion fortified their cause, a promise of a future worth fighting for. Before long, the meeting turned into a rally, and Ruth could practically feel the surge of creativity and passion in the air. Ideas blossomed and coalesced rapidly as people fervently committed to supporting one another. This was no longer just her battle, it was theirs. As the meeting began winding down, Doug threw one last failing attempt at the crowd. You think you can stop progress? Time will not be on your side, and you know it. But the room erupted in unity, voices resonating with strength. We are progress. We are family. The chant became a swelling wave of love, drowning out Doug's final words. As Ruth stepped off the stage, the crowd surrounded her, their faces gleaming with fiery determination. They articulated plans for community initiatives, moments that intertwined their lives as a family. They were no longer just a collection of memories, they were alive, breathing, a force to be reckoned with. Jacob grasped her hand once more, pride shining brightly in his eyes. You did it, Ruth. Look at them. You sparked something in all of us. Tears streamed down Ruth's cheeks, but they were tears of joy, a release of worry and pain. In that moment, she knew they could face whatever came next. Together, they were strong. The land would thrive, not just for her children but for everyone who had journeyed with her. Days turned into weeks, and every nook and cranny of their little community began blooming with colors of change. Signs of a new community garden flourished, laughter filled the air, and the past was woven into a hopeful future. One evening, as the sun dipped low over the horizon, Ruth stood with Sam and Lily, hand in hand, looking out over the fields that brimming with hope. We did this together, she whispered, feeling her heart swell. Each obstacle they faced forged their family deeper, and she now understood that love could conquer fear. As they embraced, Ruth felt the echoes of the laughter and love that filled their once dilapidated home. The future, with its uncertainties, no longer felt daunting. It glittered like the stars in the night sky, a canvas rich with possibilities. In that transcendent moment, Ruth knew that Harmony Hills was destined to thrive, transformed not by the allure of money but by the powerful bonds of love, a true testament that what they were fighting for was never just a piece of land but a place called home. And as Ruth looked down at her children, she whispered, "Forever is just beginning, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to catch the next exclusive stories coming your way. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your engagement matters, let us know your reactions and feelings about the ending in the comments below, and don't wait not even one more second to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who truly need to see this transformation. Your voice makes a difference.